Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. What a miserable end of this last week that we had. This big storm come into the northern plains, brought the cold weather into our region. Of course, temperatures were basically in the upper 20s to the upper 30s, depending on location of the state. We had the extensive cloud cover, and then we had the cooling of the atmosphere that was able to deliver some pretty significant snowfall accumulations across the southern panhandle, portions of northeastern Nebraska, where we have had reports of greater than 6 inches of snowfall. Further south, we're generally in the 1 to 3 inch range to trace as you go along the Kansas-Nebraska border. And of course, in terms of liquid equivalent moisture, 1 to 2 inches of moisture were common across the eastern half of the state, lesser totals across western Nebraska, and the southwest was the area that missed out on a good portion of this precipitation, where generally we were in the 1/4 to 1/2 inch range. Now, as we go forward in time, we're going to be dealing with this pesky troughing system, at least in eastern Nebraska, for a couple days. And then we start to see so much warmer weather come into our region. So let's take a look at the upper air models and see what we can expect as we go through this next 7-day period. And here's that upper air low that's been cut off. It basically, the trough drove down and then this low cut off, and it's going to meander slowly toward the lower Ohio River Valley. So with this moisture wrapping around the system, there's a good chance that most of eastern Nebraska will see scattered showers, particularly through this weekend, with the heaviest precipitation likely across southeastern Nebraska. The farther west you go, the drier the conditions are, and we should see some fairly decent conditions across western Nebraska. As we get into Sunday, we'll notice that system starting to lift toward our east. We'll get the high pressure building in and drying conditions. We're not expecting much of any significant moisture toward the afternoon hours of Sunday across the state. As we get into Monday, much better conditions. We're going to be under the influence of high pressure system. We should have a couple days without any significant moisture, and as we get into Tuesday, we'll notice that ridge is still in place. And as we get into Wednesday, we start to see a little bit of energy from this western United States trough trying to build in, and it might shoot off a little bit of energy into the central plains, and it possibly generate an isolated thunderstorm during the maximum heating of the day, particularly late afternoon or early evening hours, but it looks to be very lightly in terms of where it's going to be coverage-wise. More importantly, we get another piece of energy moving across on Thursday, and this one may generate some fairly decent thunderstorm activity across portions of central and eastern Nebraska, possibly even western Nebraska. The models are a little bit iffy on this. By the time we get to Friday, we'll see that we start to get a little troughing action, and we may actually see some fairly widespread precipitation across the eastern 2/3 of the state, and that may actually carry into next Saturday. In terms of temperatures, as we look toward the future, we see the gradual warm up as the week progresses. As we move back into the 70s across eastern Nebraska by Wednesday, we may approach the 80s across western Nebraska, and of course there's those chances for thunderstorm activity toward the latter half of next week. In terms of 8 to 14-day forecast, we're looking at cooler than normal conditions. In terms of precipitation, I think that this may be overdone. I think we're going to see closer to normal to above normal precipitation in our forecast.